Hey everybody, Simone here with Bulletproof Business Growth, as always with some ideas and insights what to pay attention to when you're growing and scaling your business. And in the last few weeks we've been talking a lot about AI, and we're going to continue to talk about it because it's such a valuable tool, but that's exactly what it is. And the title of today's episode is AI will not save you, it will not save your business, but it can set the stage for what will. So, let's get one thing kind of straight from the start here. It can't save your business. And if you're hoping it will, you're really missing the point. What an AI can do is take away every excuse that you've ever had for staying stuck. It can remove the bottlenecks, clear the fog, and free up all the time and mental bandwidth that you've been craving, that you really need, but really only if you know how to use it. Because here's the reality: if you're still overwhelmed, right? If your team is still distracted, if your calendar is still full but your growth is flat, AI isn't the problem. Most likely your leadership or the lack thereof is. And in this episode, I'm going to break down for you exactly how AI gives you back leverage, but also how that leverage goes to waste if you don't step up and lead differently, because you can't really do one without the other. It's just like you're using a saw. Just because a saw is a really awesome tool and it can do great things, if you don't know how to use it right, or if you are not using it right, then it's not going to make the difference, and it's not going to give you the outcome that you wanted to give you. So we'll walk through the specific ways that AI used correctly really becomes a force multiplier for your business, and that's what you want. And I'll show you what most business owners miss, not because they're lazy or tech phobic, but because they're trying to duct tape tools into an old mindset. So let's dive into this. So we'll start with kind of the first idea here, the paradox that powers growth. So the first thing that you need to understand with, and I'm going to say something that will contradict what I've said a lot of times, growth does not come from clarity. So you'll have heard me, if you've been following me for a while, you've heard me say a million times clarity comes first. And generally, I will still stand behind that. But that can only work if you are using something that's completely set and figured out, and it's already proven, right? If you're doing something that's not quite proven, if you're figuring something out, clarity honestly comes from action here, because you can't course correct if you're not moving forward. And action only happens if there's enough space to make decisions and to move, because most business owners are totally overwhelmed. Not necessarily, this is really important, not necessarily because they're doing too much, but because they are doing the wrong things. They're stuck in what I call default mode. So it's reacting, firefighting, babysitting tasks and projects they should have delegated or deleted months ago. So AI changes the game by breaking that default loop, but unfortunately it's not magic. Again, it's a tool, and what it actually gives us, much more than magic, is it gives us capacity. It gives you room to think, it gives you room to lead, it gives you rooms to make better decisions, because your mental energy isn't eaten up by the 125 other low value things that used to really own your day. And here's the paradox piece, right? AI increases complexity and reduces workload at the same time. So it introduces new tools, new options, new possibilities, new ways of thinking. And that can feel overwhelming, but only if you approach it with the old ways of working. So the business owners who thrive with AI are not necessarily the most technical. They're the ones who are willing to embrace that paradox, to say, hey, you know what? this feels messy, this feels complicated, but I'm going to lean in anyway. Because on the other side of that discomfort is a business that finally has room to grow. So AI doesn't give you certainty, it gives you capacity. And that's what most of you are looking for. And what you do with that capacity is really, and this is the key takeaway here, was what you do with that capacity is what separates the overwhelmed operator from the high leverage leader. So let's talk about how you go from busy to high ROI. And a big piece of that is refocusing the team and, of course, refocusing you. So let me ask you something. How much of your team's energy is currently going to high ROI work, right? So think about this for a moment. How much of your team's energy is currently going to high ROI work? And really be honest about this, because most small business teams and most leaders spend at least 60 to 80% of their time working on stuff that's not necessarily valuable. It's necessary, or in their heart, in their minds, it feels necessary, but it's not necessarily valuable. So like admin, prep, updates, reports, meetings with no decisions or really no good outcomes. So AI will give you a way out of that cycle. It doesn't just speed things up, it makes it possible to let go of low value work entirely. And here's the catch though, you can't, this is really important, you can't automate what you haven't first clarified. So you can't automate something that's not working perfectly. Otherwise you're just multiplying something that's broken, and then of course you have a big mess on your hands. So you can't automate what's not clarified. So in that, once we get to that place, clarity comes first. So before you can hand anything over to AI, you always need to answer two questions. What work actually matters, and who on your team is best equipped to do this? So this is where we stop talking about productivity and really start talking about alignment. And productivity is great. We all want to have that, but alignment is the most important thing, to have productivity that actually produces a high ROI, because every person in your team, including you, has a real sweet spot. That's when you do things best. That's where you do things best. It's that intersection of what you're great at, what energizes you, and what the business really needs. So AI gives you the leverage to protect those sweet spots, to stop wasting your high performers on low value tasks, to shift, I love this piece, to shift from volume to value, right? This is the shift that we're going for. So it's the businesses that win in the next few years will not be the ones that are doing the most. They'll be the ones that are doing the most valuable work with ruthless focus and precision. So AI frees up your time, but if you still have to make the strategic call here. What's worth doing and what is not, because that's really the distinction that many business owners completely miss. So let's talk about real systems and real accountability. Let's talk about something really nobody likes to admit. Most teams don't follow through. I mean, one of the biggest complaints that our business owner clients have is like, yeah, I have a decent team, but I still need to babysit them. I still need to constantly follow up. I can never be sure that things are done. And it's honestly not because your teams are lazy. It's because either the systems are completely non-existent, they're overcomplicated, or completely detached from the day-to-day reality of the business. And that's a huge one, because far too often, the people who write or who create the systems or who write SOPs or whatever, they're not on the boots on the ground sort of level, so that they come up with these systems and processes that don't really support the people that are using them. So, but this is where AI really shines. It's not just a task machine, but it is a systems engine. So when you use AI well, you can document and update SOPs automatically. You can track KPIs in real time and flag deviations or any misses in it. You can run meeting agendas and follow-ups. You can create workflows that remind and nudge and prompt action without you having to be the traffic cop or the hall monitor, right? So this is actually something that will happen on an automated level. And, this is a huge piece. This is incredibly helpful, but accountability around this is still your job, because AI doesn't hold people accountable. It just removes the excuses, right? It establishes clarity when you give it the data, but you still have to give it the data. It gives systems when you give it the processes behind it, but you still have to do that. So it can create things way faster than you ever could before and will forever. But the thing is, you still have to feed it the right stuff. So it just removes the excuses that you can't do it because you're too busy. So if somebody drops the ball now, it's no longer because the system failed. It's because expectations weren't clear or consequences weren't enforced, because that piece is on leadership. So if things don't get enforced, or if there's no consequences, well, that's a problem, right? Because so many business owners hope that AI will fix their team problems. But I'll be honest with you, it won't. But what it will do is it will expose them. So, and the other thing it will expose, which is still the foundation to everything you do, is your culture. So it will expose where your culture has big gaps. It will expose really how much you've been compensating for your team's lack of clarity or direction. Because if you've been the hero who's been jumping in and fixing things or taking things over because you're afraid they can't do it without you, well, that's you compensating. But we need to make sure that that's actually out in the open, because that moment may be uncomfortable when you have to recognize that, and that might be a really uncomfortable conversation to have with your team, but it's a huge gift, because once you see it, once it's out in the open, you can actually fix it, which before you couldn't. So AI strengthens systems, but only you can lead your team that's aligned, that's accountable, and that's operating at full potential. So there's another piece to it, and this is my favorite piece to it, really. This is where thinking bigger and thinking not just faster comes in, because that's what we want. It's not about the speed, it's about the quality, right? So if you've been using AI mostly to write social media posts or summarize emails or automate basic workflows, you are just scratching the surface, because one of the most powerful uses of AI is to kind of use it as a thought partner. So most business owners are stuck in what I call the already always thinking. So you solve problems the same way you always have. You see your business through the same lens you always have. You don't even know what you're seeing because it's outside your current frame of reference. And AI can certainly challenge that. It can certainly change that, because you can prompt it with questions like, hey, what are 5 blind spots I might have in the hiring process? What's a counterintuitive approach to solving this client delivery bottleneck? Or if I wanted to double my revenue without adding headcount, how could I change? What could I change to get there? Right? So these are questions that you might get 22 weird answers, and then you might get 3 good ones that are sparking something in you that you haven't ever thought about. So use this way, AI becomes a lens, not a hammer, right? It surfaces really the ideas that stretch your thinking, not just speed up your tasks. It's the same thing with your team. So the high performers, the ones who are building unrecognizable versions of their business in 6 months, they're using AI to think better and not just move faster. So that is really the big difference right now between businesses that are iterating really, really fast and that are making big strides, and the ones that are not, that are kind of stuck at status quo. It's not asking the right questions and not getting new perspectives. And look, I mean, like I said before, right? The best part is you don't have to accept its answers. You just have to engage with the answers. Let them spark new ideas. Force yourself to consider angles you would have never thought of on your own. And that is truly the most amazing power of this thing. So it's not just a tool. It's a mirror. It shows you where your thinking is limited, and it gives you a huge chance to expand like you never have before. So at this point in time, if you are not buying into leadership, you will be replaced. So let's get to the part most business owners don't really want to hear, because once the busy work is gone, once the team is aligned and focused, once your systems are humming and your strategic thinking is sharp, you are out of excuses. And I'm not saying people do this necessarily consciously, but a lot of times there's this kicking the can down the road that keeps happening, so you can keep having your excuses that allow you not to really change anything, and that allow you to always have something on hand, which is the reason for why you can't do the thing that's truly scary. So once you kill all those excuses, now really the only thing that's left that is going to make that big difference is you got to lead. So not manage, not micromanage, but actually lead. And that means casting a big vision, right? Thinking big and not just talking about it once, but casting this vision consistently. And then, of course, coaching your team to higher performance. That's your biggest leverage that you have right now. Building a high performance culture, you have to build it. A culture doesn't just happen, or if it just happens, it's most likely really crappy. So you have to build and curate a culture that actually allows you to perform at the level that you want to and get to that next level. But then you have to protect that culture. And then it means holding that standard, which also means making the tough calls, having the difficult conversations. Because AI can't do that for you. Nobody can. So AI is here to give you the time and space to finally do it yourself. And here's the thing. Most small business owners have never really led before. They've operated. They have juggled. They have carried everybody on their backs. But leading, that is completely new territory to them. And they haven't done it before. And they're very uncomfortable doing it. Many of them don't really want to do it, because that's not what they thought they came into business for. It requires a pretty substantial mindset shift. It requires slowing down long enough to speed others up. And same thing for you. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up yourself so that you can actually start getting into that mindset. But then you have to help others do the same, because your team will have the same bad habits that you have because you've taught them. So it requires being really intentional about who you're becoming, not just what you're getting done. And look, I mean, your business doesn't need a better operator. It needs a stronger leader. And that leader is you, and not some manager that you might hire and who you're hoping is going to fix everything for you. So the summary here is AI really removes the friction, but you still have to bring the force, right? It removes this friction so you can bring the force, and your force is actually very powerful at that place. So the business will rise to the level of your leadership, or stay stuck at the level of your control. And I'm going to say that again because this is such an important point. The business will rise to the level of your leadership, or it will stay stuck at the level of your control. So think about this a few times and let that percolate, and take a look at your business and see where that's true. So let this land. AI isn't the answer, but it clears the path to the answer, and it gives you the time, the space, and the visibility that you need. It removes the friction, and it creates focus. But the real transformation only happens when you step into the leadership your business has been waiting for, and probably has been waiting for its entire existence. So if you've been stuck in the day-to-day, buried in tactical noise, feeling like scaling is always just out of reach, it's your time to shift this. And we've built a system to help you do this. So go over to aibusinessscalingblueprint.com, aibusinessscalingblueprint.com, and get the blueprint. It is incredibly valuable. It'll blow your mind, and start implementing. Of course, that's the most important part. Start implementing. And when you're ready for next level results, reach out to us. We'll walk alongside with you and build a business, help you build a business that runs without you. Because look, AI is not your replacement. It is your secret weapon, but it only works like that if you use it with intention and lead with vision. So let us help you build the business that frees you to lead, and because that's really, truly where most of our clients, if they know it or not, that's where they truly thrive, and that's where they truly can make a big difference and a big impact. So let us help you do that. Go to aibusinessscalingblueprint.com, and I will talk to you next week.